done. He rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which God had created and made.
Hello everyone, I am not giving the sermon, but we have Josie presenting tonight, and we all know she is a teacher, loves a good interactive thing, so can I get you to get out your phones and put in the word menti, M-E-N-T-I. Whoever was here last time Josie preached a sermon, you'll be a little bit familiar with this platform. Oh no, that's okay, call out. Great, cool. Josie will be with us shortly.
Good evening, all. Hi, Alice. When I was asked to think of, there was a general call out to a few people about sermons this year, and a few different themes. And as some of you know, or anyone who's actually talked to me in the last 12 months, I took last year off classroom teaching due to burnout. Raise your hand if you've been in burnout before. Yep, it's not a fun feeling. It's when your body, mind, everything kind of forces you to stop. So I thought this particular topic that was on offer was quite apt given my most recent life experience. So as many of you know, I love using menti.com. The name of our sermon this evening is Making Margins in the Sabbath. Today's message will be in 3 parts. Part 1, margins. Part 2, the Sabbath. Shock, horror. Part 3, hot tips about margins and the Sabbath. So, to join our presentation this evening, if you are already on mented.com, you can join using the code 135. Oh, what does it say at the top? 4352. 2297. Thank you to my partner who has 20/20 vision and I do not. Clearly. As you can see, there's little like emojis and things. Go again, Alice. 4352. 2297. Say bingo if you got it. Oh yeah. So yes, ignore that slide. Okay, part 1. What is a margin? I love a good definition. What does the word margin mean to you? So in your little Menti app, if you've joined, you should be able to type out a little answer of what the word margin means to you. It might mean exactly what Denise said it was last week, which is a little red line on the left-hand side of our exercise books. For us folk who did school with pen and paper. That thing on a page, love it. That's it. That's the one answer. Oh, there we go. Separation measure, boundaries, time to breathe. A few other awesome things in our little word cloud. Buffer. When I think of buffer, I think like more strong. Anyone else? No? Okay. Boundary. Yep. Edges. Distance. Space. Excess space. Limit. I love all of this. This is great. Because you're all very much on point. So as I tend to do, I go find a definition. On the stock market, this got me very confused and down a rabbit hole, but a margin, if you're trading in stocks, or margin trading, is the collateral to cover a risk of trade. In business, so profit margin is your percentage, your profit represented as a percentage. Yay, math. Content warning, there is a little bit of math in this sermon. So if that's, potentially painful for you, I don't mind if you need to switch off, walk out, etc. In printing, which graphic design teacher that I am, it's the gap between readable content and the edge of the page. You can even see it on my pages here. We've got margins at the top and the sides. They're not very pretty. What else have we got? In history, there we go. The history of the word margin comes from the Latin margo, meaning edge or border. So gold star to those who said edge or border. It's been used for the last 500 years, more than. Now, how is this even relevant to us? I'm so glad you asked. But my favourite definition is the measure or degree of difference. Let's all think about that. Measure or degree of difference. I also love it because there's math, and I'm also a math teacher. And, measure or degree, math and difference, yay, some of my favourite things. But why? Why are margins important? How do they work? So why do they exist even? And another time for us to share. So you can tap in your answer. Why do you think margins exist? Whether it's in business or the stock market, which I have absolutely not enough knowledge about. Maybe I don't need to have that much knowledge about. It would be difficult without, yes. Protection, great. Because how to be something. Alice, can you read any of those to me? All of them. Oh, great. So I'm... To ensure continuity, I like that one. For our safety. Mark edges or buffers. To provide separation. So a bit of distance, etc. So, I actually have notes. There we go. In printing, it's used to mark where the binding of the book is and between the content, so it's actually readable and clear. In writing, for all of us who used exercise books, it was where we tended to doodle when our minds wandered. It's where our teachers tended to mark up our work. But for some of us, it's where we made notes or clarified different things. In finances, it's the security. So a lot of those words and meanings up there are all great definitions of margins. Do margins limit our freedom? Hands up if you say yes. One person, thank you for your 2 people, yes. Can I get a third? 3 people, 4, yes. Thank you, B1. Amazing. Who thinks no, margins don't limit our freedom? More people putting up hands, yes. No, I like interaction, this is great. Who doesn't know? Because I don't know is an acceptable answer. Thank you so much. So we're kind of evenly split between no, they don't, and yes, it does. We have some brave souls who say yes, margins limit our freedom. I would say margins ultimately give us more freedom, even if that's a bit contradictory, even if it feels like they don't. I think we make margins as human beings to ensure that we stay within certain limits. So there's enough space, time, money for us to process things, gain certainty or clarity, and be secure. It is this that is important to our happiness and allows us to work within a capacity instead of beyond it. For me, though, probably one of the places where I struggle with margins is giving myself a margin of time. Anyone here familiar? Come on. With Mr. Incredible. I've got time. He's on his way to his wedding. Helps a little old lady with a cat. Here's another thing on the radio. I've got time. He even interacts with his future wife. I've got time. I always have this perception that there's more time. I often don't add in a buffer for the normal things that people would add a buffer in for, like finding a park, walking to and from a place, for any mistakes or errors or traffic jams or things beyond my control. I often also try and fit too many things in a day and wonder why I'm stressed. If this is you feeling either seen or called out, congratulations. I don't give myself a lot of margin for error either, so in not giving myself time margins, it means that I'm assuming everything will go perfectly to plan, which is a very unrealistic expectation for anybody. I've learned, as many of you know, the hard way, trying to fit too much in to a capacity that was already overloaded. My body and brain forced me to take a break. But great news, things are improving. We've got a little bit more energy. I do like peopling again. It's getting there. Although, much to my partner's bane of existence, my time blindness and slight lateness to things remains a factor. I know my life and that of my time-anxious loved ones would be a lot easier if I just added 10 minutes to buffer either side of things. Hold on, I've got 2 sets of notes here. Yes, we've done those. We've done that one. Very good. Don't know where that came from. Great. Okay, well, that's it for margins. Part 2, the Sabbath. I know, we're going to get there. It's all right. They're 2 seemingly different things. Oh, here we go. What margins do you or could you build into your day or week? Sorry, I missed a bit. Mine was 10 minutes either side of where I need to travel. We've got 0 responses at present. They're coming. Wait for it. We've just got a lot of thumbs up. I like that. That's cool. So many of them. Yep. That probably about covers it. Early bedtime. Yep. Time for mindfulness. Great. Getting to bed on time. Big ones. You need big margins. Yep. More time and money. I'm always late for TAFE. Time for rest. Gold star to the person who sent time for rest, because that's kind of the theme. Who guessed it? No? Okay, you probably did, given there's the word Sabbath in there. All of those are brilliant answers. Thank you very much. 30 minutes at the end of any working day. That's a really good one. I like that one. I'm sure there are many more. So part 2. What do margins have to do with the Sabbath? The word margin doesn't appear in the Bible. It does roughly translate to a Hebrew word that means tension, although that too doesn't appear in the Bible. I went down a bit of a rabbit hole and got very frustrated, so I had to put a pin in it. However, the word Sabbath appears 137 times. It is defined as the 7th day of the week in the Hebrew calendar, so our modern Saturday, with a focus of this day as a day of rest and worship. By extension, the Sabbath is any day or year or period of rest. The traditional Jewish Sabbath goes as follows. We start on Friday, and the Sabbath starts an hour before sunset and finishes at Saturday sunset, when you can see 3 stars in the sky. So it's about 25 hours, a 1-day cycle. There are rituals for food, for candles, for laying out of elements, for family, for discussion, for community, and all of these things bring a spiritual present to the Sabbath. It is an official day of rest coming from the Bible, which is the Bible verse we just read, which states, "And on the 7th day God ended his work which he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all his work." Not some of his work, all his work. Not just the work he got paid for, the dusting, the toilet cleaning, the cooking. He rested from all of it. That's an important kind of thing there, because a lot of people don't see that as work. It's necessary, but it is work. And then God blessed the 7th day. So that resting is blessed. And sanctified it, meaning holy, made it holy, because in it he rested from all his work. All his work. Not 80%, all of it. Which God had created and made. So God also created and made work, and he takes a rest from it. So, no cooking or cleaning, or any work of any kind. No. Food is to be prepped for the Sabbath. Conversations were not to be about work either. They were to be about God, family, and connection. I know a few of these things because a number of years ago I had a very spiritually educating and actually quite lovely experience of attending a Messianic synagogue for about a year, and it was my regular church. Messianic Judaism is the practice of Judaism that believes Jesus was the Messiah, and it continues on from many Jewish traditions. So we have synagogues still on a Saturday, and this particular service only ran every 2 weeks. It was a very small congregation, and I'm talking maybe a third of ours. You think ours is small? This was a little smaller, but it was lovely. The service ran from 11 until 2. It was very intentional. Readings from Torah, first 5 books of the Bible, prophetic, the rest of the Old Testament, and then from the New Testament, they all linked together. It was a lot of study. There was prayer in Hebrew, songs in Hebrew as well, which were very beautiful, and a deep sense of community and reverence towards God's word and those reading it. And at times I struggled to sit still, as many of you will understand that. And the gender roles, in particular services, still grate against me. For example, only men were allowed to read from Torah. I found that in taking a whole Saturday off, so from Friday night to Saturday night, no schoolwork or housework, no food prep, just connecting with God and people and actively resting, again, a little bit of an oxymoron, was quite transformative. I was often exhausted at the end of the work week, and this particular practice helped me to recharge mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Even if I didn't attend the service, again, it was only on once a fortnight, I tried to keep it as much as I could Saturday as a rest day. This then also helped my energy levels on a Sunday, because I then actually wanted to do things, shock horror, prepare for the week ahead, actually see and interact with people, like do physical exercise. I know, right? Like, it was this mind-blowing kind of experience, but it was also the thing that had to be consistent for it to be transformative. I also found that the start of the synagogue services I attended, it set a beautiful tone for rest. Everybody greeted each other with the words Shabbat Shalom. And which literally means peace on the Sabbath. But more deeply, Shalom means a complete balance and harmony within body and spirit. And Sabbath was the time set aside for God. So when we would greet each other with Shabbat Shalom, the intention was felt more as, on this day that we have set aside for God, I greet you with the prayer and blessing of complete balance and harmony within. It was like a breath of fresh air to start a time of rest. Within this ritual, though, I very much believe that the verse Denise read last week is still very true. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. This day of rest, the Lord's Day, a day to stop working, to recharge, connect with God, is something that humans need, not something that humans need to do, to tick a box, called God's approval. It's something that God needed. Like, does God tick a box for God's approval? Okay, no, I'm not going into that. To set aside work and to recoup, and to do it intentionally. Not to keep going till it meant falling in a heap, as I know I have done before, and that many of you can relate to the push of, but I still want to do this thing. But God calls us and actually commands us in the 10 Commandments, but that's a different sermon, to pause. Put aside the work and be. We are, after all, human beings, not human doings. Thank you for that pity giggle. That was much appreciated. So yes, there's Shabbat Shalom. Sorry, I forgot to click through. Okay, keeping the Sabbath holy. If you've heard this phrase before, there's 5. If you've ever experienced these versions of keeping the Sabbath holy, getting dressed in your Sunday best and going to church on a Sunday, as opposed to Saturday best. No, okay. That's A. Not working on the weekend and having the shops close. All of these have been my experience as well, growing up in a small town. C. Volunteering from 7 a.m. I don't think the Holy Spirit's alive in me then, but blessed are those that the Holy Spirit is. 7 a.m. till 12 p.m. and then again from 4 till 9 p.m. across multiple Sunday services. I've been there and done that for many seasons. Getting out of exams on a Saturday. Oh, I'm sorry, I cannot sit that exam. That is my Sabbath. Some people, then it is legitimate if that is their Sabbath, and that's a very valid reason to get out of an exam. Seeing all the Sunday Christians, the people we see throughout the week. You can see here we've got, you can select any you've experienced. We've got most people clicking seeing the Sunday Christians. A few more, isn't that cool? A little animation, little bubble. Nobody's gotten out of exam on a Saturday because of their Sabbath beliefs. No previous Seventh-day Adventists, Messianic Jews in the congregation. Okay, that would have been cool, just in my opinion. I did have a friend in college who got out of doing her exams on a Saturday because she was a Seventh-day Adventist. So keeping the Sabbath holy, what does it mean to be holy? Not as in full of holes, but in terms of God's holiness. I'm sure many of us associate this with perhaps an idea of something that was reverent or full of awe or purity or without stain. But the literal meaning of holiness is to be sanctified, which means to be deliberately set apart for God, to make space for God on purpose. Ooh, that sounds like a margin. No? Okay, just me that's joyful there. Okay, I made that connection. Making space apart from the everyday for God. So now we draw our connection to a close. Hold on. Oh yes, part 3, hot tips. Before I get into what may or may not be wisdom, how hard do we find setting aside time for God? How hard do we find setting aside time for ourselves? So this is a scale of 1 to 5. 1, easy peasy. I set aside time for God. It's really easy to do. 5 is really hard. It's very difficult. I cannot find the time, energy, or space to do so. I've got a little spider graph going. I think this is more for me than you somehow, because I'm just entertained. Look at it. It goes ding. If you're online, I will hopefully provide a link. There we go. So a lot of us, there's others in need is the other one there. A lot of us are finding it pretty hard, somewhere between a 3 and a 5. A lot of us find it quite easy to set aside time for others in need. Interesting. I love learning about our congregation. Okay, so my hot tips. Content warning, a little bit of math. Math, margins, and the Sabbath. This is my rough system. Again, take it or leave it. Feel free to use it as you will, or you can be like Josie, that's total rubbish. That doesn't make any sense to me, and that is totally fine. So there are a few hot tips. My first one is about sleep. Sleep and rest are different. Sleep is, again, something we need. Rest is also something we need. But my first step in the math of margins and the Sabbath was figuring out how much sleep I needed to function. And adding buffers in either side, because I have a slow boot up cycle in the morning. It's usually somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour and a half, depending on the day. But for me, this equates to 8 to 9 hours sleep and bare minimum half an hour each side. So I'm thinking about 10 hours set aside for the sleeping. So then we go to next step, which is functioning and processing. So how many hours do I have left? 24 minus 10. I have 14 hours that are usable. Do I have to use all of them? Absolutely not. Do not let social media, marketing, and capitalism fool me. I do not have to use all of those hours productively. However, again, theme of math, 1/7 is God's margin, 1 day in 7. So about 2 hours should probably do for putting aside for me to process my day, gain clarity and certainty to plan for the next day. Often I do this after a lengthy wake-up if I'm not starting early. Sometimes I do what's called revenge bedtime procrastination because I haven't had enough time in the day to process. So adding those in, like bookending them. Tip number 3, figuring out my buffers and my hacks. How to make gaps between work mode and home mode. Transition time. How to go from one space to another, and hopefully not forget why you're in that space. But not just physically, but mentally. So habits of transition. Taking my shoes off means I am not taking the dog for a walk. Changing clothes into working clothes. I am not working in my pajamas. I mean, many of us learnt this during COVID, having to work at home, but I think they still apply now. And then learning the hacks. So for me, I don't think I've worn anything but my runners for like the past year, and they're very worn out, but I slip them on and off. I keep them loose enough so I don't have to spend 15 minutes getting my laces exactly right, because that is what I would do. So I now have more time to go a little slower. Hot tip number 4, pre-prep for Shabbat Shalom. I mentally draw a line about what's actually feasible, not just what needs to be done or what I perceive needs to be done. Sometimes I do this in 3 columns of to-dos. These are the necessaries. I have to do this before the end of the day. These are the things I should do, or I've been raised to believe I should do, which often involves something like cleaning or cooking. And then the things I actually want to do that bring me fun and joy. And then I pick one of each. Yay, I've got a bit of variety. Pre-prepping, which is very hard to say, also includes backups and easily accessible things. For example, Saturday is leftovers day, or Uber Eats day, or the easy meals day, or time for no decisions day. I do still like taking my Saturdays to read the book, or have the nap, or to be in nature gently. I try and find time, or at least one day in the week, to actively revel in the wonderful things God has made, to talk to God, connect with God, to have a good cry to God if I need it. To me, these are the times when my peace and energy are reset. And last but not least, hot tip, plans for margins are flexible. Unlike our ruled line in our math book, these are the ones that can change. Sometimes this one is hard. I need to forgive myself if it didn't go to plan. I know myself well enough to know that I will always want to try and fit one more thing in before I go somewhere. Oh no, I can do that. I've got time. I am currently trying for more quality and less quantity, and I think it's working. Some weeks I need to allow more margin and sometimes less, but I know I need it, and I also know I need to talk to God about it. That's what the margin is for, the buffer, the security, the processing space. What did Jesus do? He rested, he slept, he prayed, and yeah, he did a lot of work, and sometimes it wasn't necessarily on the right day. How dare he heal on the Sabbath? But did he do stuff all the time? No. He also didn't do all the things. And he didn't do all the things on purpose. He was very deliberate about going away to pray and coming back. Like the vacuum, it doesn't recharge without time away from being on. Its battery doesn't, and neither does ours. Deliberately changing from what drains energy to what gives energy regularly means a healthy battery with consistent capacity. What makes us so special that we get to skip out on rest time? God didn't. We're not built that way. We've been conned by marketing, commercialism, capitalism, to always be doing. We aren't human doings, we are human beings. We can just be, and taking time to be with God, whatever that looks like for you, is the best way to be. I personally can say a whole day, once a week, for at least a year works wonders. And if you can take it, protect it. Be fierce about protecting your rest time. Sometimes we can't, and that's okay, so be forgiving of yourself. So last but not least, for our little interaction, what is your best rest? How do you take time to be with God? How do you want to take time to be with God? For me, it's nature, feet to grass, eyes to sky, and sharing that with the people I love. Singing, oh, I love that one. Time in nature, being in nature, spending time in nature. Something in the car. Music, rap. Taking time to run, prayer, amazing. Walking in the sun quietly. My best rest is, I can't read that bottom right one, I'm so sorry. I do need to book that eye appointment, don't I? Yeah. And I hope we continue talking about this after today's service. So, to conclude, margins and buffer. I heard this last week when, was it last week or the week before? Denise was talking about it. And I just thought, I'm going to get buffer. No? Okay. But I firmly believe that good margins do make us more buff. Deliberately time resting in God makes us more resilient and more able to be like Jesus. Not just because he was probably quite buff from being a carpenter, but more like Jesus in being able to meet God's call, to help others, to be kind, to love, to heal, and be healed. May your margins be helpful and your Sabbath peaceful. Shabbat Shalom.